Welcome to the Finding Union podcast. This is a co-creation of divine guidance, ineffable intelligence, and the human identities of the bringers of change to activate a remembering within humanity with the information shared. The topics and the words spoken in these episodes will allow for the activation within each individual to create a deeper connection with others, self, and ultimately Creator. Bringing new perspectives, this podcast will trigger a greater understanding to what the human experience's purpose is. As you continue to listen to these conversations, you will be activated into purging the falsities of your mind, allowing your identity to dissolve, bringing more authenticity into your daily life. Here you will receive universal downloads, consciousness, and a place of remembering the true love of unconditional source connection. Thank you from all spaces throughout the universe for allowing yourself to connect deeply with the information being shared. Here is your host, Conduit of Universal Truth, Danielle Butler.
Introducing Riya Loveguard, who is a light language activator and quantum business coach, for this interview here on the Finding Union podcast. We are going to be talking about all things energetic and how we can expand through our own internal journeys through the different things in our experience. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's my pleasure.
So Riya, on the name, is this your given name at birth, or is this a given name to you through spirit? I'm very interested to know.
So my birth name is Marta, but after I've awakened spiritually, it's actually quite an interesting story with my name Riya. Loveguard is my actual surname that I've got in my passport. I had it for 10 years. I was prompted to change it when my original Polish surname wasn't pronounceable when I moved to the UK years ago. So that's that. But I feel like probably my guides were preparing something for a long time. But when it comes to the name Riya, it's a name that first came to me in a meditation, and at that time I was starting a new business, actually, which had to do with menstrual underwear of all things, and I could hear it, I think I've kind of misheard it, and we named the business Freya at that time. I later on had to depart from that business because I went through awakening, started expressing myself differently, so my business partner took that over, but it was the first time I heard it. Then after my awakening, we traveled to Uluru, and literally on the way back from Uluru I could hear it again, and it's like Riya, and then it became clear it wasn't the name for my business, it's actually my name. It's my soul's name, and then that's how it all. So I'm using both Riya and Marta. Marta is because so that my mom knows who she talks to, and Riya is because my guides gave it to me.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because I know there's many awakening souls, star seeds, and different way showers that are being given these soul names, and I'm one of them myself, and I've recently been given the name Giaya, and for me it's been a challenging shift to take on a new energetics, but it feels very true in the body. Did you find that transition brought up any conflict internally as you were were you rebranding then when you took a new name on, or had you already?
Yeah, I kind of did. I mean, my whole identity was wiped out with my awakening. My awakening was actually triggered back at the beginning of 2020. I mean, I was meditating using law of attraction, all of that for years, but beginning of 2020 was when my previous business completely failed. We were running property-based businesses in hospitality sector, and because the travel restrictions, the lockdowns, etc., this business went down like a house of cards. It was about to be refinanced, and of course, as the economy tightens and all these uncertainties hit, the finance got pulled out, and then everything just like literally fell down like a house of cards, one after the other. I've lost my entire investment portfolio. The same time, I was also running a business when, in my native Polish language, I was teaching how to invest in real estate and how to run online businesses, and I was doing it in Polish. And at that time, both myself and my business partner were going through crisis. I was going through a crisis with the business and losing literally everything. And she was going through a personal crisis in her marriage, and everything was turned upside down. And for a number of years, as we were running businesses together, when one of us was maybe having a bit of a slump, the other one was picking ourselves, like the other one up, and we had a beautiful synergy. We're still friends. And at that time, unfortunately, what happened was, well, it compounded both at the same time. And even after we navigated our way out, it was through profound shadow work and experiences, and our previous business just stopped resonating with us. We wanted to tell everybody that there's more to life than making money, which was what our old business was all based on. It was teaching people how to multiply their money, how to make money, how to express themselves online. But we knew this isn't that anymore. So I also felt like, because I'm only doing it in Polish language, which is spoken by 40 million people, but it's just in one country, it's not gonna go far. So I have left my business, and I started expressing myself just as a spiritual teacher, with all my weirdness, with all my ET stuff, and yeah, I never regretted. It was like a phoenix out of the ashes. The old has burned down, and the new has emerged. But when it comes to the name itself, I also kept my birth name together with my spiritual name, because I feel like it's this integration of the old and new. Because sometimes when we're going through profound changes, we're going through challenges, we can really reject a lot of the old, because you just see how much it doesn't resonate, how unaligned it was. But at the same time, every experience, and I've been through a lot of tough experiences, especially in business, every experience like that is a valuable lesson. So I've been kind of guided to have the old and the new. So Riya Loveguard or Riya Loveguard, both of them are fine. I just feel like it's symbolic, but it is very, very, very fitting. Like you mentioned about your own name, that when we're going through this process, we're remembering our soul's name, the name that is beyond this incarnation, which is exactly what happened to both myself and you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing the pieces around I guess the tower falling in your life and your awakening, and how you were doing like an old paradigm of business, and then how now you're using those things that maybe don't resonate so much anymore. And I'm sure every single skill that you learned doing that business is now serving you in more of your soul aligned quantum business coaching. I would love to hear how that then transitioned of bringing in these old ways of, making money, and then teaching people how to live through their soul to make money.
Yeah, well, I feel like sometimes, because I now mostly work with energetics of business. I work in people's personal field, energetic field, and yes, having an extensive knowledge in marketing and knowing all of that helps. I know how to build a brand. I know how to I know how to operate the social media environment. I know how to sell. But sometimes when this 5D or higher dimensional business paradigm meets that 3D, it just doesn't stick. So more often than not, rather than utilizing the old skills, we have to pave the new way. And most of the things that we learned as effective tools for business, I simply refuse to use them anymore. So, false sense of scarcity, pressure tactics, all of that marketers tell us this is the way, that's how you do it. It's like there's only 3 spaces left, even though there isn't 3 spaces left. I mean, there's a difference when you actually have that, but we've heard that all. Another thing that I've never, even in my previous business, I never touched that, but which is very, very popular, is using NLP in sales and various techniques of coaxing, manipulating people. That doesn't feel right in the 5D business paradigm. There's a lot more freedom, binding people into long contracts. So it's almost as we are paving way to quantum way of doing business, so expressing our soul. It's like this whole 3D marketing book is going out of the window. Certain things, like building a brand, it's kind of important to know how to do it. We need a certain amount of business intelligence and strategy, and that is fine. We need to know our numbers, we need to plan and project forward. However, the biggest amount of shifts is not by using the newest funnel or using some kind of script. It comes from working on ourselves and on our business energy field and identifying blockages. And there's a whole plethora of tools we can use, which are nothing like the business tools that they teach us in business schools. I've studied MBA, and none of that really applies anymore to what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, isn't it? I wouldn't say that I'm really well versed in business knowledge, but I did do social media marketing, and so I learnt the marketing skills, and I got trained through that, and I did really well and successfully. But in reflection to who I am now, when I'm living from my heart, the things that I did then, they just don't fit. They don't. It's like, oh, cringy. There's so much like, oh, that doesn't feel good at all. And so it's been finding this truth and how to express truth and be of service. And I think for me, and you'd probably find this with a lot of your clients, I have a contraction around the word business. Like I don't even like the word, and I need to redefine that for myself, because I know that that's one of my own blockages. Do you find with a lot of the clients that you work with, there are contractions around specific words that you have to unpack? And what does that unpacking look like when you're working with someone one-on-one?
Yeah, there definitely are contractions around business. Money is another subject, which we touch on money. The energy of money is fascinating, and we definitely have to cover this subject. But you can call it practice. You can call it your mission. You can call it your expression. And yes, the word business doesn't fit either. I like calling it business just for easiness, but I feel like a lot of the new concepts, they don't even stick in our current language. They don't, because the current language doesn't know these ways of expressing yourself and working. But when it comes to contraction, the word business, I suppose, as such, is not the biggest block. The biggest block I find is around receiving and around money. I find like number one block in most of the light workers that I work with individually and in groups is around receiving. And that comes from our beautiful big light worker hearts. which are all about giving. And maybe if you're listening or watching this, you even define yourself as a giver. And this is such a common thing. Oh, I'm a giver. I'm a giver. And another thing is sometimes from our upbringing and the religious concepts, even if we haven't been in a religious family, that giving is better than receiving. Whereas for me, a lot of work around business is identifying these collective blocks and bringing a bit of balance, because it's just as good to give and as it is to receive. It is an exchange of energy. And when we're listening to how we say, oh, like when you say, this is where I feel this contraction, we can sometimes even feel a squeeze in our body. I also work a lot with words, and certain words, when I speak to clients, they will pop up energetically. They will like light up, and I know to pursue a thread. And yes, there are certain blocks to abundance or blocks to success that we have from a collective level, like that block to receiving. But mostly they are individual blocks that happen because of some energetically significant events, either in our ancestry or in our own history. This is why I don't believe there is such a thing as 5 money blocks or 7 money blocks or 10 money blocks or abundance blocks or whatever, because everybody's got individual ones. And a part of my work is going down to the source of it, because the same block around receiving, let's say it's a block around receiving, one person will get that block from religious upbringing, which told them that it's better to give than receive. Another person will get it because in their family, whenever the parents were giving them a gift, it always came with strings attached, and they were almost expecting that if they're receiving, that they're going to be controlled. From another person, it will come from something else where they've felt like receiving is pity or whatever. Everybody will have their own individual reasons, and part of working with energy is identifying those energetic patterns and going right to the core of what caused it, because there will be some original wounding, original trauma, original place where this thought process has kind of started, where our energetic field learned something. Another example, so I had, and I'm going to give an example from me and my ex-business partner's own fields, because we both had an exact same pattern, which in our mutual business was always the case. We always had peaks and troughs. So even before our spiritual awakening, that was my old business, we always had this big waves of in and out, in and out, in and out. So we would have like some successful campaign, we're selling some calls, and then bang, next month we would have to go to the bottom. And those waves were massive. And after we've awakened, we even stopped working together at that time, but we've both realized the very reason why we both had it. And same block, same effect, peaks and troughs, right? Feast and famine pattern. But for her, it came from her ancestry, from her dad, who had a business that was very successful and he lost it. And that same pattern repeated twice. So that loss carried forward as a trauma in the ancestral field. For me, it was something else. It was because when I married my husband, I married and plugged energetically to his family line, and his family line had the pattern where, well, the grandma and grandpa won a lottery, and the field has learned to rely on massive energetic spikes, on massive money injections, and it caused the same pattern. So same pattern, different cause. And part of working with removing these patterns, removing those contractions where you're feeling a squeeze, is why do you particularly feel that squeeze? What is it in your field that, where is that first original core wounding? It can be in your life, it can be in your grandparents' life, or maybe even a past life.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you've mentioned this because it shows the components of the different blocks that we have in our energy field. And from my understanding with my work, there's the blocks in the mind, there's the energetic blocks in the body that we've carried in, and then there's the blocks in the soul, or the energetic blueprints that we carry in as well. And so it's like figuring out, I know for me personally, when I've looked at a lot of my blocks, I haven't really looked into a lot of the ancestral stuff. I've done a lot more into this lifetime, this reality. And recently, a lot of past life stuff's been coming up, like lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff is coming up. And before it was always this remembrance, but the pains now that are being carried through, because I feel in my own personal life, I've cleared a lot of this current lifetime. I've done a lot of work on my mother wound, my father wound, and my relationships, and really like sitting with that, feeling it, pulling it to pieces. But then this other dimensional kind of not so visceral in our experience, that is definitely a challenging part, and why having someone like yourself, a coach, to help unlayer that would be really important, because we all remember differently too as well. So it's like having a process to go into, how do I know if it's, something that's brought through ancestral lines? How do I know if it's a past life thing if I don't have the tools or the processes to even identify that?
I feel like our fields are intelligent. So as long as you make a decision and you're like, hey, I'm ready to actually shift into, let's say, abundance or business success or whatever, then our field will present us with those opportunities. And yes, there is a skill and experience that comes from identifying those patterns. And the more you do it, the more obvious they become. But part of it is that our energetic field speaks to us at all times. It's just we need to learn to listen. Sometimes we don't know, because, for example, when I work with a client, I can see the patterns just by listening to them. I can immediately see the connection. And I think this is something I can't even explain. It's just something that's in my soul blueprint. I can spot patterns, and I work on patterns. So I can see, okay, this is where it's coming from. Sometimes it's trial and error. You see, okay, this is definitely not coming from this lifetime. So where is it coming from? Let's dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper. And personal development tools only go to this lifetime, to your child, like you say, your mother and father stuff. And by the way, never underestimate these. And these are massive. And sometimes the field also opens in layers. So it's not like, we would love to have a beautiful linear process, like, okay, I'm going to clear everything from this lifetime, and then I'm going to go through my ancestry and then past lives, and then I'm going to be all nice, clean, and tidy. But that doesn't work like that. The field guides the process. So you may have worked through tons of ancestral stuff, and then all of a sudden something happens in your business where something from your childhood is being brought up as your limitation. It's like, oh my goodness me, I thought I've worked through it, but there is a new layer to it. So it's a process that continues. It's, however, the good news is that after every time we clear something, it's permanent. It doesn't, the same block will not come back. And that's the difference between working with energy and working with mindset, because you can change your mindset, but once you delete an energetic block, once you resolve that ancestral trauma or karma, that is it. This block will not come back. Probably it will make space so you can see a deeper layer, because there may be another block underneath, but until you maybe take that out, you won't be able to see the next. So it is complex work, but at the same time, our field communicates to us a lot. It's just we need to learn to listen. It can communicate to us through our dreams. So as I said, like when I work with clients, I just see that in front of them when we're talking. But sometimes my ancestors will communicate to me in a dream. They will point my attention to something like that. It can be even something like a memory. where there's a memory floating to the surface through a smell or an old song, and it points you out in the right direction. The more you work with it, the more sensitive you become to this. And I think the biggest shift though comes from understanding that it's 100% energetic, or maybe 95% energetic, that the causes of our blockages, of our contractions, of our business problems, we in the old paradigm, we always look, okay, well, what have we done wrong? Maybe the audience is set up wrong. Maybe my messaging needs to be improved. Maybe something else. Whereas if you know that everything, the three-dimensional reality, you're doing correct, so you know your message is clear, but yet something is not floating, then you go on an investigation. What is it? And the field will always give you answers.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm so resonating in that of from my way of working with people is that you don't need to search for these things, because your field will identify them with your triggers or your contractions of the body, and those are the things that are being bought for your attention. So when we are talking about the receiving one, which I also would feel would probably be one of the biggest blocks in business, when that comes up, there's so many different areas throughout the life where you're going to be shown in your field where you have receivership contractions or blockages. Because if you have a contraction in, say, towards money or receiving abundance, then if you attach that sort of energetic feeling, then you can identify that may be just in receiving compliments. It could be receiving, a gift. It could be receiving, I'm trying to think. There's many different forms, like where we contract over receiving, and it could be affection, in so many different forms, that if it's in one area of your life, it's usually across the board. And do you find that the receiving, I know you mentioned about when you're a star seed, we've got big hearts and we're givers. Do you also feel there's a component there around being more in the masculine energy, and the programming around being a doer and a giver in that form of the masculine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it goes more than just a masculine energy. That as well. That is very common, especially, well, both for men and women. That doesn't matter whether you're working with a female or a male. We generally, over the last thousands of years, we've got this hard work, almost like slave programming, that it can't be easy, that we have to work hard for it, that if we don't work hard, we don't deserve. So there's this kind of conditionality, and the programming runs deep. It can run through our ancestry, it can run through collective understanding, it can run in our personal life and childhood experiences. So again, different forms of it, but 100% the masculine energy, which, by the way, it's absolutely necessary in business. Without masculine energy, which is all be kind of like, juicy, yummy, have a cacao and let's float about, and maybe will kind of come to us. Masculine gives structure to that. In that structure in business is really important, because then you can actually start receiving with ease. Because if your whole back end, your structure, planning, if that is all done and taken care of, there's actually more space for that ease, for that receiving, for this flowy energy, which is beautiful. I feel like a business can be literally an expression of divine union. So this feminine inspiration, allowing, surrendering, intuition, and the masculine structure. And what we can do is we can merge both of them together within one entity. But 100%, there is a big thing, there is a big doer template, where people are literally so it's almost like a rat race where it almost feels like a squeeze in the body, that unless I'm literally hurling my guts and kind of like, pushing so hard that my veins are about to pop, that I can't receive, because I have to work. I have to, even the word earn, even the So even the word earning is kind of loaded, that we have to earn money. We don't talk about receiving money, we talk about earning money. And somehow we very often feel like it's better that we actually worked hard. It's like, we don't respect people who, let's say, received something from the parents, or like generational wealth. Oh, they had it easy. It's kind of more respectable to make it, and it's no good when it's easy. Well, why does it have to be so hard? Why does it have to be earned? Because that's how we've been conditioned. But we get to choose. By all means, we can earn hard, but we don't have to. There's ways of, especially when you're working within your natural gifts, within your soul mission, it can be an absolute pleasure. But I would encourage anybody who's struggling with receiving to see whether they have this conditional program running, where they feel like they have to push themselves, like they have to earn and deserve, and otherwise it doesn't count.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I've looked a lot at the receiving and how that blocks us in many forms. But I had never made that specific link with the earning and how we pity, I guess, or we judge others when they have it easy, and how we can sometimes compare ourselves, even throughout our journey. I'm sure that many people can relate to comparing themselves to other people on social media, and it might be in the form of relationship, or specifically business, where you're like, oh, that person has it so easy, they're not even that talented, or they haven't even done that much work, or whatever it is, the narrative and the story that comes up to sort of protect the ego and the identity of feeling their own internal unworthiness or receivership wounding. And I find that really, really quite a fascinating one, because it's quite obvious with the way that we are conditioned with the work hard, and we have to do it to we are only measurable with what we do in the world, yes, rather than for who we are in our essence and our beingness. So that piece has just opened up a whole new perspective for me to journey myself. And it makes me very curious about how you specifically receive this with your clients, and how when you said that you see the energetics, I'm assuming you see people's energy blueprints, and you're able to sort of perceive their blockages. Are you able to talk me through like that experience for you and a client, if someone was feeling called to sort of see this within themselves, or to reach out to?
Yeah, so when I say I see, for me, my quantum experiences are non-visual, because I work mostly with sound, and as a light language activator, I speak all these multiple light languages, and for me, visuals are not what is my toolkit. So my husband works in the same way. He sees those blockages in people's energetic bodies. I hear them. So when a client talks to me, when I'm asking them certain questions, we're having a bit of a chat, certain words will pop up to me. It's almost like an energetic light up, and I know, okay, that's the word, that's the thread I need to pursue. It's like it's like threads that you have to pursue. And another way how I work with energetics is, as I mentioned before, with those patterns. Basically, I always see the bigger picture. I see the cause and effect. I see, okay, this comes from ancestry. And it's very difficult to explain how it is done. The best thing is to experience it yourself. And when you start working and you see how patterns are formed, you start spotting them first in yourself, because I had to do this work myself. So it started off when the first business completely failed. I was asking myself those questions. Why did it fail? Where did we go wrong? And I've discovered a whole world of energetics underlying the actual physical causes. And this is basically how it works for me. Is I will hear certain words, they will pop up to me. It's like an energetic highlighter. It's like, okay, that is this stuff. And because I'm so audio focused, words tell me about patterns. So even the way someone describes something is important. Sometimes there will be metaphors. Sometimes there will be the stems of the word. There will be really that will tell us a story. And it is fascinating to witness how something which we repeat. Sometimes there is a phrase that we repeat, for example, and that phrase gives us a window to the world of energetics. Well, and then once we've identified, the biggest thing is to identify the pattern. Once we've identified the pattern, we then need to do something which isn't breaking the pattern, because the whole world of personal development tells us about breaking the patterns. That's actually one of the most dangerous things you can do. When you break a pattern, when you like snap it, you acting sometimes with this unintended disrespect to your own energetic field and sometimes to your ancestry. Because the reason energetic patterns are formed is to protect us. Certain behaviors that we carry from generation to generation is because our ancestors have learned that this is the safe way of doing stuff. And I'm going to give you a quite like a striking example so it sticks. So for example, there's people who have blocks to visibility. And it's not just a case of saying, now I want to be visible. I can see there's a block to visibility. Now I'm going to express myself. Because if, let's say, the block to visibility is caused by the fact that as a child, they were sexually abused and being seen meant being in danger. And the reason that the field has learned to hide is that they're not being put through this trauma and pain again. Then we have to act really delicately and not break this pattern. We have to respect this pattern, because that was the pattern that was helping them survive an extremely, extremely difficult situation. And when we go to the core of it, we get a chance to heal this pattern, whether it was in our life or in our ancestry life, but also tell our field that this pattern no longer serves us. And then we let go with love, with respect, with understanding, with acknowledgement, but gently. Because what happens if we don't let go of a pattern gently is the whole field gets agitated, because it wants to get us our attention to recognize and heal that wound or that trauma or that karma. And literally what happens is matter starts to speak. So we start breaking things, losing things, having little accidents, niggles. Maybe then our even physical bodies are displaying signs of disease, because all of that is our field trying to get our attention to look at actual cause of what happened, rather than when we break a pattern. It's like I always say, it's like sticking, the middle finger towards our ancestry or our pain. No, we have to really do it gently. So yeah, that in kind of in a nutshell, it's first seeing the pattern, then acknowledging the pattern, and then releasing the pattern.
Yeah, The rule of threes pops up again. Yeah, and that acknowledgement and seeing of not breaking it and having the respect, because we often have this negative lens and perspective where people like have this really dark view of their shadows, or they look at things in this form of, it's limiting me, it's not good for me, it keeps coming up, and there can be this sort of one-sided viewpoint on where the blocks are, rather than seeing that everything is polarized in this reality. That's what this whole dualistic 3D that we're living in is currently on, and we need to understand there is the dark, but there is also the light to it, and that's where it's seeing the positive side of a perceived block, is that it has held some level of safety or security, or it has fed some form of even bringing some form of unconscious joy, or more positive internal fulfillment. And then it's getting to that point of, oh, okay, this doesn't serve me now, but it was a tool. And seeing all of our life as a tool. It's a tool that got you to where you are now. And when you have new tools and your vibration rises and your remembrance is activated and you're expanding, then those tools are going to fall away, and finding new ones that do serve. And I really value that part around the respect of those blocks, because it's about the transmutation and not just the severing. Even for me, the cutting of the cords piece, and I'm sure it has its relevance in business, but the cutting of a cord, it's not healing the wound. The reason a cord is there energetically for anything is because there is some awareness, there's some healing to come forward. And so you can cut cords in any forms over and over and over, but it's just going to keep coming back, because our souls, we want to heal. Our mind wants to heal, our body wants to heal, every part of us wants this healing. So if we're not addressing that root wounding, then it's just going to keep returning in different ways, shapes, or forms. And I know we were talking about how you can see business as a twin flame relationship, and I think that was just before we jumped on camera. But it's like this cord, right? The cord that people feel in these twin flame relationships is like this mirror of the self to be brought up, to be healed. And that's why those cords are so strong and magnetic and painful and turbulent. And when we relate that to the business side of things, I would love to hear some of these understandings around these more turbulent cords, and how you see this twin flame with business.
Yeah. So let's start with saying that our business can have energetic entity and its own consciousness. It doesn't have to, but it can. We decide. So in a way, that's another very often block to people receiving, is when they haven't given the business an energetic birth. Then it just exists in the third dimension. However, we can give our business like this energetic birth, and then it starts taking its own being in higher realms. And once it's there, we can have a conscious relationship with it. And the business is not just us. Our field needs to see it. And sometimes one of the like a basic things I come across is when people's personal field doesn't see the business field. And what happens then is almost like the business is me. So that causes all sorts of blocks. When a person is then removed from the business, let's say they go on holiday. Actually, that example that I'm going to give you doesn't come from my session, it comes from my husband's session, which wasn't a business related session, but it turned out to be. He had a client who was running a boarding kennel, and whenever she was going on holiday, there was problems with dogs being mistreated by the people she put in charge. And she obviously cared about the dogs and cared about the business, and it was really upsetting her, but it was only happening in her absence. One of the reasons energetically for it was that the personal field didn't see the business field. The business and the personal was the same. So you remove the person, the business stops running. It can be the same with, you remove yourself for a week, your income dries up. So that is the interrelation on a very basic level between our personal energy field and business consciousness field.
Mhm.
So we can take it further, because the next step is that our business can reflect, be that mirror for our own blocks. Because very often when we're running any business, whether it's a personal brand, whether it's some physical business, whether it's an online business world is full of challenges and doing new things, stepping up to perhaps expressing yourself in a way that you've never expressed yourself, getting into positions that you never dreamt of getting, maybe sometimes I wouldn't say getting out of a comfort zone, but expanding your comfort zone. And that is what is happening. And as we step up, as we start doing new things, the various blocks are being revealed to us. So I see it as this beautiful symbiotic relationship, because on one hand side, by us being conscious and awakened, we can elevate the business to higher dimensions, to higher realms, by starting to approach it differently, by seeing it as an energetic being, by not engaging in the three-dimensional practices, but really working from a higher dimensional state. So that's one thing. But on the other hand side, our business reflects it to us, because whenever we have a new thing, let's say we're launching a new product, we're introducing a new service, we're opening a new premise, we're doing something that we haven't done before, whenever there's challenges rising, and maybe things sometimes in business don't go according to plan, it's an opportunity for us to see what is the underlying cause. And once we remove that, two things happen. So first of all, the business gets to new heights, whether it's with income, whether it's with exposure, whether it's with brand. But we also personally ascend, because we liberate the amount of energy that was really holding us back. We shed through our limitations. So yes, I feel like it is a bit of a metaphor, like the twin flame relationship. When in that relationship, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but the stuff that is happening, it helps both parties grow. So in a twin flame relationship, it's both partners, and in the business relationship, it helps you grow and it helps your business grow.
Yeah, it's the fascinating part around doing business in a new way, in a new paradigm, with this higher vibration, and creating that, not having the reference points from old dynamics. What I really got out of your sharing there was about having its own consciousness, and how with the work that I do, it's like there's a consciousness. I do a lot of work on healing the body, right, and healing the mind, and I guess more the personal experience. So there's peace in just in being and in life, and usually that's relationship stuff that I'm working on. There's a lot of relationships, and that is where we store the trauma in the body, is related to whatever relationship history, whether it's karmic, past life, this life, current. It has its own consciousness, and how you're expressing that when you don't see, I guess, when you haven't created the consciousness for as its separate identity, how energetically, when you pull away from something, it dissolves in any form. Like if you pull away from a relationship and you take your energy out, the other person notices, right? It's the same thing. It's like if you energetically disconnect from someone, that person, whether they're conscious and aware of it or not, will feel the absence of you, which makes so much sense in a business perspective. There's like lots of little parts where I'm like, wow, how have I not seen this before? This is like an amazing conversation.
Yeah, this is something that, you know, nobody taught me this when I was doing my MBA. No accountant ever told me that. It's just a journey of discovery, and you know, I work usually with quite new businesses, where people who are maybe awakening starseed and light workers and starting to maybe come out of a corporate job to express themselves in a more aligned way. So that's one of the things. So then I work with consciousness of businesses that need to be born. But then there is a different aspect when I work with people who have very established businesses at a different stage of growth. Let's say it's been running for 10 years. Then it's a case of, how do I actually consciously disconnect? How do I start trusting this business to be its own entity and kind of not having to supervise it? It's like, you know, I like to, even though I haven't got my own children, but I feel like this kind of like parent-child dynamic often kind of works within the between us and our businesses, because at the beginning stage, it's like a vulnerable baby. We need to protect it. It needs a bit more of our attention. But there's also this kind of stage of growth where it's very established. It's like that, you know, maybe a teenager or a kid in the young 20s, which is ready to go its own way. It's ready to kind of actually not be mollycoddled and be supporting us rather than we supporting it. And then it's actually a case of being able to let go and being able to connect. So it's all a journey of discovery, seeing various business fields of various people, how they represent it differently, how the energy is unique. And I encourage every listener who perhaps has got their own business or their own practice, spiritual practice, which they run, to actually start even thinking about it. Because once you do, you start talking to your business, you co-create with your business becomes your business partner, which I know it sounds like counter-logical, but that's the case. And then you can introduce one more modality to the scene, which is always a feature of my individual sessions: the energy of money. Oh my goodness me, the energy of money. It's like a whole new subject which I could talk about for hours and hours, but it is a very powerful energy, and you can introduce it to your business and you can actually discover it for yourself. Because money is energy, but we don't see it like that. We don't see money for what actually money is. We see a distorted version that's been fed through our conditioning, through societal being, through being in a family. And when we actually connect to money energy on our own merits and allow money energy to show herself, I always refer to her as feminine because it feels like feminine energy to me. So, you know, if she shows herself to us, every single client that I bring the money energy into, it's like, she's not like what I thought. It's sometimes such a profound moment. So yeah, if you're listening to it and you've never done that kind of work, start talking to your business, start talking to money.
I love that. It's it is. It's a receiving of this feminine energy, isn't it? The masculine, like, you know, it's the masculine's giving and then the receiving of the feminine in return, and this exchange. And it's kind of juicy, isn't it? That I've never seen.
Oh, she's a very elegant lady. And I feel like there's a lot of interconnection between how we treat money energy and how we treat female sexuality. I feel this is the same energy, because this is the energy of creation, energy of value. Because what is money? Money is exchange of value, and it is also connected to that energy of creation. That is this life force energy. And the way that the feminine sexuality has been repressed and suppressed because it's such a strong force is exactly the same with money energy. Money energy has been distorted, suppressed, or abused in very similar ways because it's the same. It's the same quality. It's just a strong energy that shows us more of who we are. It's an amplifier. Same with sexual energy. That's why we've got this spectrum, this Madonna whore paradigm. It's the same with money. If you have a lot of money, you're filthy rich, right? And even the word filthy rich, there's power in words. We also refer to when someone is overly sexual. That's not good. But then on the other hand side, it's not good if you're poor either, because then you piss poor. And again, we're using a derogatory word, filthy rich, piss poor. Where do you choose to be? And it's almost like we can't win. Whereas when we actually let go to what other people think, either in relation to sexual energy or to relation to money energy, and we actually create our own connection with these energies, wow, we start creating new realities then.
That is so profound. I'll be getting off this call and I'll be like, whoa, that was like, yeah, amazing. Exactly. Those paradigms that, and relating it. And this is so activating for me because I've done so much work in the masculine and feminine, and I'll be the first person to tell you that I have receivership blocks and looked at them in different forms on so many different levels, but never just the block I have around my own story around financial abundance. And I've been journeying that a lot lately. So it's no surprise that this conversation is taking place. But the masculine, feminine, and those really judgmental places of flipping between both the superiority and then the victimization of these extremes in the masculine and feminine, and how you can relate that to money specifically is just fascinating. Thank you so much for that metaphor and that explanation, because it makes it really tangible, I feel, for a lot of people, especially if they've been doing this internal work. And I personally see many like light workers and awakening beings that are wanting to work in their purpose, and this specifically business and money is a huge block, right? It's huge. So if you can start to see these links of, if you've done a lot of work on your own masculine and feminine energy in relationships, and then it's very easy with what you've shared to go, oh, okay, I can see the bigger picture here about how this relates with this, and start to get some insight and an expansion, and then find your own your own blockages and see it in a completely different way of creating new that feels true in the heart as well. So that's absolutely sensational information. I know that we're coming, like, I could sit here and talk to you like all day. But I would love to know what you have currently that people could, if they're feeling the resonance and they're really ready to, level up in their business, or express some of the light language stuff that you do as well, because I know that you work in sort of two areas specifically. Share, if you want to share a little bit about what you do in light language, so we can cover that, and then how people can work with you.
Yeah, so we'll probably link up to it. You can go on my link tree on my website, rialoveguard.com. What I do, yes, I activate starseeds and light workers. My natural coding, to my ability to speak multiple light languages, somehow brings about people's superpowers and remembrance of their gifts from the past. So that's one leg of my work, is activating starseeds. But what we were talking today is about equipping starseeds, light workers, conscious entrepreneurs, in what they can do after they've awakened. And there's various ways of working with me. I've got like a kind of like a kickstarted 3 individual sessions where we deprogram the fixed stuff around money, around abundance. We look at those personal blocks, all that we talked about today. But soon, and probably when this is published, it may already be ready. I will be also releasing a more in-depth ways of working with me longer term. I am planning a group. I wanted to call it a mastermind, but it's not going to be about a mind. It's going to be more about the energetics. It's going to be a program called Radiance, which will be about literally radiating our gifts out to the world and embodying the energetics of business knowledge. All that I'm sharing today and a lot more. But there will also be a program which will be a longer journey with me, one-on-one, that I'm working on. It's going to be called Iridescence. So if you go on my website, you'll probably find all the information there. If you want to get in touch, just reach out on any of the social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. Drop a message and let's see what actually your goals are, where you want to be, and how I can help you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you about that for myself. And thank you so much for all of your wisdom, knowledge. Thank you. I really witness you in the work that you've done in this field internally, because you said it earlier about our gifts come through from our own experience. You only have this knowledge and wisdom to share with others because you've done the internal work and you've been able to find this greater picture and shift into a new way of being. I see a lot of similarities in a different way with the way we work. I see myself in the way that you receive information. And so it's really nice to talk to somebody who sort of does receive the world in a similar way, because I also feel that's really important for each individual to understand. How do you receive your gifts? Like, how do you receive your information? Because we are so uniquely different, and we have a different way of being of service for ourselves and others. And so it's an important part of the awakening process to see yourself and how you receive the world. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and your wisdom and showing up this morning.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Beautiful. Thank you for listening to this. If you feel the resonance within your heart and a full body yes, make sure you follow Riya Loveguard on all of the social media platforms. I will put the links below. And if you enjoyed the Finding Union podcast, make sure you subscribe and catch us on the next episode. Now signing off.